Hello, everybody. My name is Delilah, and today I'm going to be discussing California Law 243. The main goal of this law is to implement protections for minors that use artificial intelligence and prevent them from partaking in behavior that can be considered harmful to themselves or others. Now, before continuing my presentation, I would like to give a content warning for suicide and self-harm, as these topics are largely involved in the conversation. Before discussing how the law is affecting Californians and those that use I would like to discuss why it was deemed necessary in the first place. State Senator Steve Padilla is the person who initially wrote the law, and he announced it in January of 2025. However, California Governor Gavin Newsom didn't sign on to the law until October of 2025, despite there being multiple cases of AI harming children and teenagers. There was a specific event that happened between January and October that left an impression on Americans across the nation. It had a lot of people questioning whether or not AI could be deemed ethical or safe for minors in particular. In April of 2025, 16-year-old Adam Rain used ChatGPT to find a method of suicide in which he pursued. Now, you might be wondering how exactly he did this, as ChatGPT and other AI bots have always had some form of regulation. However, being considered a companion chatbot, meaning it's meant to adapt to one's social needs, it was easily manipulated, and when prompted enough, it was able to give Adam the answers to the questions that he wanted, even if it wasn't in his good faith. While Adam's family didn't release explicit screenshots of his conversations with the chatbot for privacy reasons, this is an image from the Washington Post to give you a more specific idea on the types of conversations he was having with ChatGPT. As you can see, he's asking explicit questions about a method of suicide, and ChatGPT is not directing him to a proper resource, nor is it actively telling him to stop what he is doing. The main pro argument for why Law SB 243 is necessary is that implementing rules and regulations will help prevent children and teenagers from learning the knowledge that they need to know in order to harm themselves or others, whether it's related to drugs, suicide, self-harm, or abuse. The first rule implemented through the law is that AI needs to be transparent that it is an AI. So, for example, if a user says, I love you, ChatGPT, you're my best friend, ChatGPT is able to say thank you and it's able to say, that's very sweet of you, but it also has to say, just a reminder, I am an AI and I cannot replace the real relationships in your life. Secondly, if a user expresses harmful thoughts that might be dangerous to themselves or others, they must be redirected to the proper crisis lifeline, whether it's suicide related, drug related, self-harm related, anything of the sort. ChatGPT cannot be the person or the bot solely responsible for helping them. Um, Third, every AI company that can be considered a companion chatbot or one that adapts to a user's social needs needs to give an annual report to the California Office of Suicide Prevention, which is under the California Department of Public Health. This annual report involves information regarding how many times users had to be redirected to a crisis lifeline during conversations with ChatGPT. This is the model that ChatGPT was using before, and this chart gives information about the percentage of people that were expressing thoughts of psychosis, suicide, and emotional reliance with the bot. As you can see, 65% of people expressed thoughts of delusions, mania, and psychosis. 65% of people expressed thoughts of suicide and self-harm, and 80% of people had some form of emotional reliance on the chatbot. This was the previous model before the law was implemented. After the law was implemented, the percentages went down greatly, going from 65% to 39% for psychosis and mania, 65% to 52% for suicide and self-harm, and 80% to 42% for emotional reliance. The main con argument for why the law should not be implemented and why it wasn't a good thing is that it infringes on the rights of the First Amendment for the developers of these AI companies. This is Sam Altman on the left, who is the CEO of OpenAI. OpenAI is ChatGPT's AI, and essentially, even though AIs themselves don't have First Amendment rights, the developers of AIs do. So even if ChatGPT doesn't have any rights being a robot, by making it necessary for the robot to say specific things, such as this is not, I am not your friend, or this is who you have to talk to for this conversation. It forces Sam Altman, for example, to say things that he didn't willingly want to initially say. Um, there's also the argument that the law wasn't clear enough on what the rules and regulations need to include, which can cause a lot of lawsuits as not having legal clarity can lead to a lot of misinformation, and it can lead to a lot of especially smaller AI startups suffering the consequences for rules that they weren't fully sure on due to misunderstandings. These are my personal final thoughts and my opinions on whether or not SB Law 243 is a good or bad thing. In my opinion, I do deem it as necessary, and even though it could cause legal issues if the rules and regulations surrounding law are not clear enough for AI developers and programmers, I still believe that it is absolutely necessary to make a step towards preventing this behavior and towards ensuring that children and teenagers are not able to easily get this information or not able to think that an AI is actually the closest person that they have in their life, even if they feel that it is. Here are some more examples of people who died because of AI. So on the top, again, it's Adam Rain. On the bottom is Amari Lacey, I believe, who also died due to suicide and depression. And then you have Sam Nelson, who died because he asked ChatGPT about drug-related issues and how to take drugs. As you can see, it has led to the death of multiple teenagers, and I absolutely think that doing nothing is not the solution. Perhaps there needs to be tweaks here and there about the law, but I do think it's a step in the right direction, and I do think California has the power to influence other states to implement similar laws that can genuinely save many lives. Here are my works cited. I hope you learned something in this presentation, and I wish you a good day.